You're listening to the #1 Nielsen rated. The News Hour with Noam Laden. Thank you for listening. 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash, LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam.
On 77 WABC.
Oh, yeah, that's me. 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Tuesday, June 3rd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine today, but we're going to see some hazy skies from those Canadian wildfires that sort of seeped in yesterday. It may be a little more intense today, but the temperature is going to be nice, high 78. Tonight and overnight, clear, low 61, and then Wednesday, sunshine, warmer, high 83. If you're walking out the door with us right now, 54 in clear in Larchmont up in Westchester County. It is 53 in clear in Ewing over in New Jersey, and it's 57 and clear right outside our Midtown studios.
The top 5 at 5.
Governor Hochul being challenged by a former friend. Early voting begins in New Jersey today. Here comes those Canadian the wildfire smoke again. An Upper East Sider says he was beaten for supporting Israel. And a new DMV scam is fooling a lot of New Yorkers. All right, let's get into it at 5:01. Don't know if this smoke is going to affect this, but just wanted to point this out. The Aurora Borealis, or the Northern Lights, began this impressive display over the tri-state over the weekend, but it was kind of cloudy, so you could not see the light show in the tri-state area. So it will continue tonight. And the good news is the skies over the region, minus that smoke, let's hope it clears, means that you'll see the northern lights in the skies tonight. Now, the bad news is tonight's will not be as impressive as the weekend, and most of us will miss out on the complete spectacle that they saw in the Midwest. Apparently, it was just beautiful. But so look up to the skies tonight. You could see these northern lights. Maybe you saw a little bit of it last night, but it will be, if you've never seen it before, it's still impressive. Even though it won't be the full-blown thing they saw in some states across the Midwest, it will still be pretty nice over New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Long Island, Westchester, if you look into the skies tonight. All right, let's get into it in New Jersey. Early voting begins today in New Jersey's primary election. 11 candidates running for governor, including 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. The 2 winners, of course, will face off against each other in November. An Emerson College poll finds that the economy remains the top issue for voters at 45%, followed by housing affordability, 12%, threats to democracy, 11%, immigration policy at 9%. Voters across the state weighing in as they try to decide who to vote for. Now, it seems on the Republican side, it's pretty clear who's going to win there. Maybe not so much on the Democratic side.
That's going to lower the gas prices, try to lower some of these food prices, because there's a lot of struggling Americans. We need somebody that's for the people and not for the agenda, somebody that's going to take both the Democratic and the Republican side.
Now, in order to vote in New Jersey's primary, you have to be registered as a Republican or a Democrat. Voters talking about all kinds of things. Here is one voter talking to CBS, and he says the ICE raids across the Garden State is a big issue for him, so he's going to vote for Newark Mayor Ross Baraka.
He's obviously very adamant about protecting immigrants. He's done a lot of things against like urbanization, the rapid urbanization, the gentrification that's affecting Newark.
Now, Phil Murphy is term limited and he can't run again, 8 years in office. The state's been controlled by Democrats and the legislature has been Democratic for decades now. So there are some voters who are starting to push back against that. Democrats who are pushing back against that.
Well, I think the Democratic Party has to figure out what they're really standing for in such a way that they could show the public what they're about now, because I think there are some questions about that given how things have moved politically since the last election cycle.
So affordability, as we've heard, high taxes, the cost of buying a house in New Jersey, a big issue for younger voters and older ones as well who want to stay in the Garden State.
I find New Jersey a little bit hard to live in, just given the fact that, it's very hard to buy a home.
My concerns as a business owner, I think the last 8 years, everything that New Jersey has done from the pandemic, even before that, has been anti-small business.
Okay, so the early voting begins today. Primary day is next Tuesday. The front runners for governor, and these are, at least on the Democratic side, it does not seem like a lock. It seems like it's relatively close. But she is ahead, Mikey Sherrill, the congresswoman from central New Jersey. On the Republican side, Jack Ciattarelli seems to have a pretty large lead. 5:05. While we're in New Jersey, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says Newark Airport is starting to see the improvements that flyers have been waiting for. He visited the airport yesterday to mark the reopening of a runway that had been shut down since April. It badly needed rehab work. Unfortunately, it came at a time where air traffic controllers were having issues, but that runway back open.
Today we're celebrating the opening of Newark's runway. And this is a 60-day project that actually is completed 13 days early.
Yeah, so we like that. The runway closure, along with equipment issues, staffing shortages have been causing these massive disruptions at Newark over the last month. Now, what they did in the last couple of weeks is limited the number of flights in and out every single day. And so now you're not having the big delays, the cancellations that we saw a couple weeks back. And Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says everything eventually will be ironed out, but it may take a couple months.
What you're seeing is everyone who touches the problem is giving their full-hearted effort. They're leaning into the problem and helping fix the problem. You're going to see improvements again in the telecom, and then you're going to see improvements with the staffing issues with regard to controllers.
Now, this seemed a little bit like a marketing ploy yesterday. United Airlines, their number one hub is Newark Airport. So they've been affected in a bad way by all the shutdowns and the problems with air traffic controllers. They said yesterday, the CEO, that you can now get an incredibly cheap flight out of Newark. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I went online, and guess what? The flights were cheaper than they normally are. So here's a chance to get a cheap flight, maybe for something if you're going on a summer vacation.
You have every asset that touches the problem working together, coordinating, cooperating, collaborating to make sure that as a team we address the problem that exists at Newark.
Okay, so the issue now will just be these air traffic controllers. They are training some seasoned ones to learn the Newark market, and when they're put into place coming in October, now I think in the fall they say, they'll be able to increase even more so the number of flights coming in and out of Newark. WABC News Time 5:09. Let's talk about this creep in Colorado who attacked these pro-Israel Jews on Sunday with Molotov cocktails, throwing fire at them. He's been hit with federal and state charges. The acting U.S. Attorney for Colorado says this individual charged with federal hate crime, attempted murder, which carries a life sentence. This is an Egyptian national, Mohammed Solomon, who had overstayed a tourist visa.
And when he was interviewed about the attack, he said he wanted them all to die. He had no regrets, and he would go back and do it again.
Mohammed Sabri Solomon accused of using that makeshift flamethrower, Molotov cocktails, in Sunday's attack in Boulder, which injured 12 people. That number went up from yesterday. He apparently had planned this attack for like a year in advance, looking for Zionist groups online that he could do damage to. So now he's going to face these 16 counts of attempted murder, a bunch of other charges as well.
Mr. Solomon stated that he had been planning this attack for a year. And he acted because he hated what he called the Zionist group.
And apparently he waited until June because he wanted to see his daughter graduate high school, which you can't make that stuff up.
My office and our partners hope justice will help heal the people in this community and in the communities throughout the country shaken by yesterday's attack.
At this point, we have no reason or information that there was any type of extended conspiracy, although that investigation continues.
Right. So the FBI, everybody says they think this individual acted alone. Of course, there's always the worry that he'll influence others to act out. The governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, says he's confident that Mohammed Sabri Soliman will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. This 45-year-old from Egypt.
I'm confident he'll be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
I think I just said that.
And now, 3 years later, after coming to this country under Joe Biden's administration, he is lighting Jewish people on fire.
That's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt yesterday noting that the Egyptian man overstayed his tourist visa. She was asked about this yesterday. President Trump said the attack will not be tolerated in the U.S. And he went on to say that the suspect came in through Biden's ridiculous open border policy and that he would go under Trump's policy. Here's more from Caroline Leavitt, the White House Press Secretary, yesterday.
Any individual, especially illegal criminals who engage in acts of terrorism, will be held accountable under this president. This terrorist came into our country under the previous administration. Joe Biden's administration foolishly gave him a tourist visa and that allowed him to unlawfully remain in our country.
And of course, anytime there is some sort of terror attack like that, the NYPD will beef up patrols in certain areas. Now, the NYPD is always sort of on high alert, but apparently even more on high alert yesterday, protecting Jewish institutions because it's a Jewish holiday, the holiday of Shavuot. So those Jewish institutions in high use over the last 24 hours. Here was Mayor Adams talking about how the NYPD is monitoring the situation in Boulder and then, of course, watching things here.
This attack really was despicable, and we all should be calling to denounce this attack.
Now, the NYPD had already increased patrols for the Jewish holiday, but the patrols beefed up just a little bit more now.
We are constantly monitoring not only what happens in other cities, what's happening across the globe.
Yeah, and of course, we're finding out that two of the victims of this attack in Boulder, Colorado on Sunday afternoon still in critical condition this morning, 5:13. Event security being called into question now after pro-Palestinian protesters stormed the stage yesterday during the speech by the U.S. Navy Secretary. He was mid-sentence when several loud protesters managed to get up on stage with a banner.
A more adaptable culture.
Yeah, security was able to grab those people and pull them away. It happened during a national security forum in Washington, D.C. It took security about a minute to clear them off the stage. 5:13. While we're down in Washington, President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill is now up in the Senate.
The multi-trillion-dollar tax and spending package narrowly passed the House, and the Senate will take up the measure this week, where Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes. Democrats say the White House is trying to cut Medicaid and other social safety nets by billions of dollars. Republicans say there are much-needed reforms to the programs that will cut the deficit. After the Senate vote, House lawmakers will have to approve the changes to the bill. I'm Mark Mayfield.
5:14, China pushing back on the White House contention that it broke the Geneva Trade Agreement. Mitch McCann has more.
After President Trump claimed that China had violated its trade truce, only weeks old, Beijing hit back on Monday, saying that if the U.S. continues to damage China's interests, it will take forceful measures to safeguard its legitimate rights.
China instead accused the U.S. of breaking the deal's terms. Trade tensions, of course, between the two nations have been rising after the Trump administration put more export restrictions on semiconductor design, software, chemicals to China, and said it would take away visas for Chinese students.
In May, both countries agreed to lower tariffs for 90 days in an attempt to reach a trade agreement and de-escalate a growing trade war. On Friday, though, Mr. Trump said China had, quote, totally violated the agreement.
Now, as of the end of the weekend, though, it seems both nations claim to be playing nice and that they could be getting close to some sort of trade deal.
China is also unhappy with comments made by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over the weekend, who suggested China poses a military threat in the region. Beijing says Hegseth was stoking flames and creating tensions in the Asia-Pacific.
I love the way he says Pete Hegseth. Listen to that.
China is also unhappy with comments made by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over the...
Defense Secretary. All right. 5:15. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk with a man who has no weird accent at all, Justin Eller.
I mean, I could put one on if it's going to entertain you.
Could you do? Well, that
was
was
like 4 years old.
No, listen to this guy. He says defense. Well, listen to us.
Okay.
China is also unhappy with comments made by U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth over the weekend, who suggested China poses a military threat in the region.
Okay, that's enough. Yeah. I mean, it's just too early for this. You can't.
I mean, not for me. 5 o'clock's prime time. Yeah.
That's true. You are locked and loaded. Yeah. So you got to give me a second, and then maybe I'll
catch up with me.
Well, I give you a fair reaction.
Right. Okay.
Start here on the diamond in Los Angeles. Nome. The Mets beat the Dodgers 4-3 yesterday in 10 innings to take the opener of a 4-game series against L.A. Edwin Diaz registered the win for New York after surrendering 1 earned run and working the 9th inning. After starter Paul Blackburn worked 5 innings of shutout ball, punching out 3 Dodgers along the way. Jose Butto secured the save for New York after shutting the door on L.A. in the 10th. Francisco Lindor launched his 14th home run of the year in the form of a first-inning solo shot before Brandon Nimmo registered an RBI double in the 5th that scored Jeff McNeil, and Francisco Alvarez did the same in the 10th inning with a 2-bagger that scored Luis Angel Acuna. Lindor delivered once again thereafter, singling to left to score a pinch runner Starling Marte and putting New York ahead for good in the extra frame. Up next for the Mets, Tyler McGill will start tonight's Game 2 of 4 against the Dodgers, set for a 10:10 p.m. first pitch from Los Angeles. Now, as for the Yankees, after an off day yesterday, they'll open a 3-game series against the visiting Cleveland Guardians tonight from the Bronx. Carlos Rodon will get the start there in what will be a 7:05 p.m. first pitch. In a significant blow to the first-place Yanks, closer Luke Weaver is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks of a hamstring injury. Weaver suffered the injury over the weekend. What are you oh-yang about over there? You like
I'm talking to Sid. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't realize my mic was
on.
What
are you, the Kool-Aid man?
Yeah.
What are you? Oh yeah.
He was filling me up, so I was
clearly right. You were reacting accordingly.
I was. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe next time, shut off your damn microphone.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Anyway, Luke
doing the same to me and mine's off. Sorry, I'm a little bit more.
Yeah. Hey, no. Can you follow?
Did you
Louis'
respond?
lead, please?
Oh yeah, too. Or
yeah. Oh yeah.
No, I couldn't tell you what I said.
Weaver's down for the count. That's not good for the Yanks. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. Hamstring injury for the Yanks closer. They're expected to place him on the IL today. Fernando Cruz slated to be activated. Devin Williams figures to slide back into that closer role that he lost to Weaver in late April. And we are looking ahead to the start of the Stanley Cup finals tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Panthers at the Oilers up in Edmonton, Game 1. And, of course, Thursday night this week, 8:30 p.m. out in OKC. The Pacers and the Thunder will get the NBA Finals going there with Game 1 on Thursday night. That is your Sports Know, man. I'm Justin Alec on 77 WABC.
Oh, yeah. WABC News Time 5:20. Fed Chair Jerome Powell says it's vital that the central bank understands the financial practices of other nations. He was speaking at the International Finance Division's 75th anniversary conference yesterday, saying he's seeing data from around the world, and that helps the feds navigate inflation and employment.
In my time at the Fed, the IF division has provided invaluable insight into global economic activity, international trade and capital flows, and developments in foreign financial markets.
Likewise, Powell says the world looks at the Federal Reserve when there's a crisis to see how it responds. It comes as the Fed has held interest rates steady despite calls from President Trump to lower them.
75 years later, it remains critical that the Fed understand the policies and practices of other governments and central banks and their implications for the U.S. economy and for financial markets.
WABC News Time 521. Some of the victims of the January wildfires in California say they're uncertain about rebuilding.
It's not that they don't want to rebuild. They're wary of government officials moving fast enough. The LA Times reports a survey conducted by Project Recovery finds people will wait only so long to return and rebuild. The report suggests for every year it takes to get back in to rebuild, 20% will decide to go somewhere else. The Times says rebuilding means intense cooperation between city officials and builders, and the survey says many property owners say the leadership just isn't there. I'm Jim Roop.
Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman says the Democrats' handling of the border was just a huge mistake.
Fetterman noted his support of the roughly $150 billion in President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill that would go towards securing the U.S.-Mexico border and ramping up immigration enforcement within the nation. Fetterman said, "I thought the border was really important, and our party did not handle the border appropriately." The Congressional Budget Office reported last year that the annual net migration under former President Biden averaged 2.4 million people from 2021 to 2023. I'm Mark Mayfield.
Let's bring it back here into the city. New York City Mayor Adams continues to tout the lowest number of shootings, homicides in recorded history. Adams, holding a press conference yesterday, says between January and May, NYPD stats show that New York City recorded 264 shootings. The previous low was in 2018 when it was 267 shootings over the same period.
This is such a win for New Yorkers, and it matches our holistic approach of preventing crime, going after young people with justice involved, and our programs like CRED, summer youth employment.
Meantime, the city saw 112 homicides in the first 5 months of this year. That's down from the previous lows in 2017 and 2014. Mayor Adams says the latest stats build on his administration's work to remove more than 22,000 illegal guns from the streets since he entered office.
You can't have a shooting if you don't have a gun. And we removed over 22,000 illegal guns off our streets.
Now, while we're talking about Mayor Adams, yesterday he was also talking about his administration's trash containerization program. And he says it's working, that there's been fewer rat sightings in New York City. You know, some places you can't just leave the trash bag out on the streets anymore. The acting sanitation commissioner says since residential container requirements first went into effect, that was 6 months ago, the number of reported rat sightings have dropped.
We drastically reduced the number of hours trash sits on our sidewalks. We moved commercial trash into bins. We move low-density residential trash into bins.
Yeah, certain neighborhoods, though, boy, you just see them around. When I'm walking to work, even this morning, sometimes they're like the size of cats. It's so unbelievably nasty. But the Department of Sanitation just finished installing trash bins across West Harlem, becoming the first neighborhood in North America to have all of its trash fully containerized. They say that'll help with problems there where there's been a lot of rat sightings.
Today, these automated side-loading trucks and Empire bins are bringing cleaner streets, cleaner sidewalks, and fewer rats to all who live here. Over the last 5 weeks, we have installed roughly 1,100 of them throughout Manhattan Community Board 9. These bins are sturdy, rodent-resistant, and locked for use only by specific buildings and their staff.
All right, so they're saying the complaints to 311 about rat sightings have gone down since they put trash into containers, and it makes sense that it would. All right, 525. While we're talking about Mayor Adams, he will not be one of the 9 candidates set to take part in tomorrow night's Democratic mayoral primary debate. Mayor Adams won't be there because he's no longer running as a Democrat. He decided to run as an independent. But when you talk to New Yorkers about how they feel about this race, the first thing it seems that people will say, and these were voters in Midtown yesterday, is that one person they don't want to see is Mayor Adams back in office.
I think I would, yeah, because I see a difference.
I feel like he's corrupt, but I mean, it's politics, right? I'm going to think about it, see other candidates, what they're to offer, and then I'll make a decision, yeah. I just know that this mayor needs to go.
All right, so the big debate tomorrow will include former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who has been purposely media shy during this campaign. Somebody who hasn't been, State Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, who's not too far behind in the polls from Cuomo. Former Comptroller Scott Stringer, Brad Lander, Adrian Adams will all be part of this debate tomorrow. The first time we'll get to see all of those candidates on the same stage. 526. Bill Gates says he plans to spend the majority of his fortune on improving health and education across Africa.
Speaking in Ethiopia at the headquarters of the African Union Monday, the Microsoft co-founder says he plans to put $200 billion from the Gates Foundation toward addressing challenges across the continent. He said the money will be spent over the next 20 years before his foundation is shut down in 2045. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
Toxic heavy metals such as arsenic, cadmium, lead, and mercury are being found now in popular rice brands.
A study by Healthy Babies Bright Futures tested 145 rice samples from various stores in 20 metropolitan areas, including New York, Los Angeles, and Miami. Arsenic was found in all samples, and the study highlighted that brown rice showed the highest levels of heavy metals. I'm Brian Shook.
Don't they tell you that that's the best kind, brown rice.
Make your cash secure again with Secure Cash LLC. Transporting your business's cash safely in armored trucks. SecureCashLLC.com.
You're listening to the #1 Nielsen rated. The News Hour with Noam Laden. Thank you for listening. 77 WABC. It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Sponsored by Secure Cash LLC. Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me. Good morning. It is Tuesday, June 3rd. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. Sunshine today, but we're going to see a haze from those Canadian wildfires that started to seep in yesterday. None of the orange skies that we saw 2 years ago, but you'll see it. The high today, 78. Tonight and overnight, clear, low 61. And then Wednesday, sunshine, warmer, the high 83. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are. It's 54 and clear in Larchmont up in Westchester County. It's 53 and clear in Ewing over in New Jersey. And it's 57 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. Do you remember when then Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul became governor because Cuomo got in all kinds of trouble, had to leave office early, and then she kind of smacked him around while she was in office, and you can imagine it will make it quite uncomfortable if Cuomo becomes mayor and she's governor. So now she's feeling what it's like. Her own Lieutenant Governor, Antonio Delgado, last night launched a Democratic primary challenge against her. This is her current lieutenant governor who's now going to run against her. That's not going to make for very comfortable conversations in the State House up in Albany. Delgado does not mention Hochul by name in a video that he dropped last night, but he talked about the fact that he does believe that Governor Hochul, and she does not mention her by name, is not doing enough to people who are hurting in New York, and that New York deserves better leadership. Here's a little bit of this video, again, dropped last night.
Delgado is the son of working-class parents who...
Born and raised in New York, attended Colgate University.
Graduated from Oxford and Harvard Law School.
He was a hip-hop artist.
A congressman.
And man of faith.
That's your heart, man.
Antonio Delgado.
All right, thank you. Love you, sir.
Thank you, brother.
When I was growing up in Schenectady, I started off watching my parents
Cutting coupons, putting clothes on layaway. Education was everything.
They worked us up into the middle class. Kids growing up had a more likely chance of success than their parents. Not so much the case now.
It's love of family. It's love of community. It's love of state. It's love of country.
Yeah, it goes on for a little more than a minute. Hochul selected Delgado, you might remember this, to be her lieutenant governor and running mate back in May of 2022 after her then lieutenant governor, she hasn't had a lot of luck with lieutenant governors, Brian Benjamin, was arrested on charges related to campaign finance fraud. Now, Delgado had signaled back in February that he might make this move to run against his boss, and now he made it official last night. The two, Delgado and Hochul, have had some high-profile disagreements, including Delgado called on then-President Biden to end his 2024 re-election bid, and then he also went after Mayor Adams, telling Mayor Adams that he should resign. But now, officially, he is running against Hochul in the primary for governor. 541. Early voting begins in New Jersey's primary election today. 11 candidates running for governor, including 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. 2 winners will face off in the November election. Voters have a lot of things on their mind as they begin early voting. The primary day is next Tuesday, a week from today. Housing affordability is one of them. The economy is big.
That's going to lower the gas prices, try to lower some of these food prices, because there's a lot of struggling Americans. We need somebody that's for the people and not for the agenda, somebody that's going to take both the Democratic and the Republican side.
Governor Murphy, the Democrat, of course, who is now term limited because he's been in office 8 years, has had control. The Democrats have been control of the legislature for, decades now. And you do hear from some voters, Democrats and Republicans alike, who say that things have to change a little bit.
Well, I think the Democratic Party has to figure out what they're really standing for in such a way that they could show the public what they're about now. Because I think there are some questions about that, given how things have moved politically since the last election cycle.
The two front runners for governor in the polls anyway, Mikey Sherrill, the congresswoman from Central Jersey on the Democratic side, Jack Ciattarelli on the Republican side. Affordability, again, a big issue for people across the state. They say it's hard to pay the rent, find a house they can afford.
I find New Jersey a little bit hard to live in, just given the fact that, it's very hard to buy a home.
My concerns as a business owner, I think the last 8 years, everything that New Jersey has done from the pandemic, even before that, has been anti-small business.
Yeah, so primary day, again, is next Tuesday. Early voting, that begins today. 5:43. We won't see those eerie orange skies again in the tri-state as this Canadian wildfire smoke starts to seep into the tri-state area. We saw it yesterday. I could see the skies almost looked a little bit cloudy. The haziness will intensify apparently a little bit more today as that smoke comes in. Zachary Iskol is the New York City Emergency Management Commissioner, and he says City Hall is watching this closely to see if they have to make any moves. So far, they do not, again, think it'll be anything like what we saw, what was zombie-like 2 years ago in the summer where it was just orange outside.
We do have a distribution plan to get masks out to firehouses and police precincts and libraries where people can pick them up.
Of course, lots of questions why these wildfires are still out of control in Canada, why they can't get a handle on it. New Yorkers are, concerned that they should be worried about this smoke coming in, but so far everybody says it won't be anything terrible.
Not good for the climate, not good air for anyone to breathe, especially here in New York.
Yes, so it's not expected to get to that level where it could be hazardous for people who have breathing issues. 5:44. In Queens last night, concerned parents showing up at a meeting is a high school principal there, facing a list of disturbing charges for allegedly forcing himself on 2 victims repeatedly. So parents were a part of this meeting at the Academy of American Studies in Astoria, anxious about the principal, the 66-year-old William Bassel, who was arrested. He was accused of engaging in, let me give the exact, forcible touching, 5 counts of third-degree sex abuse. And this is for allegedly groping 2 adult women who work at the school. They claim he grabbed their inner thighs without their consent in one incident, blocked one from getting out of a vehicle. So parents, of course, incredibly concerned. What's happening? Is he still in control?
It's an active investigation. They can't comment on it. Parents are not happy about that. So parents commented on it.
So far, they're not giving a lot of details only because for legal reasons they cannot, but they say Principal Bassel is not in charge of the day-to-day operations of the school while his case plays out. His lawyers, by the way, say he has done nothing wrong, that the accusations against him are all false. All right, 5:45. Let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk where we find Justin Eller.
Thank you, Pete Hegseth.
What's that?
How was that?
I didn't understand what you said.
I did the Pete Hegseth thing for you.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
What? It took you half an hour to forget about it? Already?
Yeah, it took me like 3 minutes to forget about it.
Unbelievable. I thought that was pretty good, too. It spent the whole...
Do it again, because I wasn't paying attention.
Nope. I don't repeat myself.
All right.
Maybe I'll give it to you later.
Okay.
Started on the diamond in L.A. Nomer. The Mets beat the Dodgers 4-3 yesterday in 10 innings to take the opener of a 4-game series against L.A. Edwin Diaz registered the win for New York after surrendering 1 earned run in work in the 9th inning after starter Paul Blackburn worked 5 innings of shutout ball, punching out 3 Dodgers along the way. Jose Budo secured the save for New York after shutting the door on L.A. in the 10th. Francisco Lindor launched his 14th home run of the year in the form of a first-inning solo shot before Brandon Nimmo registered an RBI double in the 5th that scored Jeff McNeil. Francisco Alvarez Alvarez, I should say, did the same in the 10th inning with a two-bagger that scored Luis Angel Acuna. Lindor delivered once again thereafter, singling to left to score pinch runner Starling Marte and put New York ahead for good in the extra frame. Up next for the Mets, Tyler McGill will start tonight's Game 2 of 4 against the Dodgers, set for a 10:10 p.m. first pitch from Los Angeles. As for the Yankees, after an off day yesterday, they'll open up a 3-game series against the visiting Cleveland Guardians tonight from the Bronx. Carlos Rodon will get the start in what will be a 7:05 p.m. first pitch. In a significant blow to the first-place Yanks, closer Luke Weaver is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks because of a hamstring injury. Weaver suffered the injury over the weekend during the Yankees' 3-game series against the Dodgers. He warmed up to pitch the 9th inning in Sunday's series-ending win, but felt discomfort in his hamstring while stretching after completing the warm-up and did not enter the game. He underwent tests yesterday during the team's off day. The Yankees are expected to place Weaver on the IL today, with Fernando Cruz slated to be activated. Devin Williams figures to slide back into that closer role that he lost to Weaver in late April. To the NHL, we're still looking ahead to tomorrow night, the start of the Stanley Cup Finals between the Florida Panthers and the Edmonton Oilers. The series will start up in Edmonton for Game 1 tomorrow night. And on Thursday night, the NBA Finals will get going in OKC against the Indiana Pacers and the Thunder. That's an 8:30 p.m. tip-off on Thursday night. That is your Sports Know, and I'm Justin Hollick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:49. Just a wild scene in St. Albans, Queens yesterday. 3 men in masks, ski masks, show up as an armored truck is going to pick up and drop off some cash. They point a gun at these guys. It's not clear how much money they got away with, but people were pretty frightened. This was 8:50 in the morning, so there was a lot of people on the streets.
I'm surprised. Really surprised.
This was on Linden Boulevard. The guys, the men in the ski mask, they got back into a black sedan, took off. No shots fired, so that's the good news. The Brinks Trucks drivers were about to make a drop-off at the Bank of America before that money, and again, not clear how much, was taken away from them. 5:50. The NYPD investigating an attack on the Upper East Side is a hate crime now. Police say a wanted crew yelled "Free Palestine" before punching a 72-year-old Jewish man. Now, this Jewish man, his name is Amnon Shemri. He's been going around the city posting flyers of hostages being held in Gaza. And as he did this, he ran into a crew of people who did not like that he was doing just that.
He started yelling, "Free Palestine, free Palestine." I got the punch right over here. Now,
Amnon said he was surprised that this had not happened sooner. He worried about this kind of thing. So this attack took place Lexington Avenue and 68th Street. Group of men start punching the 72-year-old.
And I'm surprised it didn't happen sooner. I don't know what to tell you. Probably the war in Gaza is just escalating the whole situation, and anti-Semitism and all kind of stuff.
For Amnon and his wife Diane, the issue is very personal. They have a cousin who was kidnapped on October 7th, 2023.
It's a terrible feeling. It's, you wake up feeling and thinking about it, and you go to sleep feeling and thinking about it.
Yeah, so they say the threats of violence and now an act of violence will not stop them from posting more flyers. In fact, they were back out there doing that again yesterday. So far, they have not caught up with the creeps who punched them. 5:51 up to Westchester County. We're seeing a lot of black bear sightings across the tri-state, sometimes in surprising places. This one was in West Harrison yesterday. Police saw this animal crossing Sherman Avenue during the course of the day. They got calls from people all over saying he's in my backyard, then another person saying he's in my front yard.
It was in my backyard.
So I was just shocked. Oh my God, guys, look! And we're like, we jumped. Crazy. And then all we see is like the black fence and a bear right behind it.
And we saw as cops rushed in with guns in their hand to take out this bear if they had to. It looked to be the smaller side, but of course a bear is a bear.
It was extremely nerve-wracking. This is a very quiet street.
There's a lot of wooded areas around here. We have the lake. And also you have the woods behind Preston Elementary School.
Yeah, so the Department of Environmental Conservation police officers were on the scene. At some point, they walked and left away, but they would not tell us if they took down the bear or they let the bear go back into the woods. 5:52. While we're up in this area, a substitute teacher from the Peekskill City School District arrested, charged with promoting, possessing child sex abuse material. Brian Mishik, he's from Yorktown, Town Heights, arraigned in the town of Cortland, held on bail. Officials with the school district say there's no indication that any of their students are involved.
We take our students' lives very, very seriously and their well-being. So it is appalling and disturbing to hear.
Yeah, so district records indicate this individual was hired as a substitute teacher. He was cleared for work. They did the background checks, but of course, if you can do as many background checks as you want, if he hasn't been busted before, of course, it'll never come up.
I'm shocked because I never heard of something like that since I've been here for 11 years.
Yes, so police think there may be more cases out there. They're asking anybody who may have been involved with this individual to give them a holler. New York State Department of Motor Vehicles warning New Yorkers to watch out for scam text messages falsely claiming to be from the DMV. I've been getting the Easy Pass fake ones. Have you been getting those where they tell you if you don't pay right away, they're going to rip your license away? So this one is similar to that. The messages demand payment for supposed unpaid fines. They threaten to suspend your license or registration. And it's just a phishing attempt by these scammers that probably overseas somewhere where they're trying to steal your personal information.
We never send a request to someone for personal identifying information via a text message or a request for payment or anything.
Now, if you do see these messages, a lot of times there's like misspellings, suspicious URLs, but sometimes they're clean and you can't really tell whether they're legit or not. But what the DMV says is they'll never threaten you that they're going to take your license away in text form. Now, they may do it in an email, but not over text.
Misspellings, if you look at where it comes from, the URL or the number, you can obviously sometimes spot that it is either out of the country or there's something off with it.
Yeah, so don't fall for this text. New Yorkers, like me, they're getting these texts.
So I checked the system, nothing was there, and
I was pretty upset, but I knew it was a scam because it was kind of in broken English.
I just deleted it. I didn't pay attention to it.
Yeah, so don't fall for it. New York City officials calling on the state to pass legislation to crack down on what they called so-called super speeders. Assembly member Lyndon Rosenthal said this legislation would require repeat offenders who receive 6 or more speeding or red light tickets in a 2-year period to install speed limiters in their vehicles.
We know that super speeders like that one endanger people's lives.
Officials say drivers with 30 or more violations are 50 times as likely to be involved in a crash. The results, of course, in death or severe injury. It comes as officials on the state to renew the city's speed camera program for the next 5 years. They're trying to add this into some of the bill where you would have this device, I guess, that would slow you down.
The driver who killed Amanda had racked up over 90 speed camera and red light camera violations in the 2 years prior to when she was killed.
Now, some people say this is just overreach by the state. They want to collect more money, but this assembly member, Linda Rosenthal, says no, it's all about safety.
If you don't want to pay a ticket, then obey the law. The whole point of this is to make people obey the law. We'd rather collect no fines, no money, and keep people safe and alive.
And we'll leave with this story. If you've ever applied for a job in New Jersey, there's good chance you never knew what it paid until you got far along in the hiring process. But as of June 1, there's a new law in the books that requires most businesses to tell you a range of what you can expect to be paid. It's known as the Pay and Benefit Transparency Act. And that's precisely the goal of this act, so says the state senator who sponsored it, Paul Moriarty.
This kind of transparency is going to lead to higher salaries for people. That's what it's going to do. End of the day, what is employment about? It's like, how much are you going to pay me? What kind of benefits do I get? Why is that the last thing we're going to talk about?
The bill signed by Governor Murphy last November, and it states that all businesses with 10 or more employers will have to publish and post a salary range or an hourly wage range for open positions. And most people in New Jersey say, yeah, I'd like to know how much you're going to get paid.
I've actually been applying for a lot of jobs recently, and really a lot of them they don't tell you. They just say that they pay you, but it really doesn't give you any specifics, really.
Less for the job I already have, then I would have just not taken the interview.
I'm hoping that, with this thing and it being officially written down, that it'll help a lot of people in my situation.
Companies who fail to comply with these new rules could face fines.
Thanks for listening to the News Hour with Noam Laden. You can hear the News Hour with Noam Laden weekday mornings at 5 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.